So, I don't know if any of you guys just saw, maybe you were chilling with me and Evan Hart on Twitch. We were, macking today. We had a Showback stream. Shout out to the boys. Much love to them. Season of Discovery is basically pretty much solidified now as officially being done. They just announced their quote-unquote Phase 9, but as a joke, it's not really Phase 9. It's really just them saying we're converting into something new, and that's Mr. Pandaria. Pretty much. So that is their Phase 9 as the underlying joke of the hopium and copium we've been having the past couple days on the, YouTube community. But yeah, it seems like that they are officially putting the nail in the coffin for Season of Discovery. If you scroll down here to the bottom post, you could see at the exact middle of a Mr. Pandaria post, like Season of Discovery, it's kind of astonishing that it didn't even get its own post. It was just shoved into a mop post where it says here officially, take advantage of a golden opportunity and get ahead start in Mr. Pandaria Classic through June 30th, which is my birthday, by the way, shout out. Successfully defeat Dreadlord Balnazar in the Scarlet Enclave raid to earn 1 level 85 character boost classic progression just in time to visit Pandaria. Finish the fight to the end and your reward will be granted on July 1st. And if you've already taken down Balnazar in Season Discovery, have no fear. You too will be granted a character boost for your retroactive bravery. You have, or you must have an active WoW sub in order to do this, or game time. Only 1 level 85 character boost progression will be granted per active World of Warcraft subscription or game time account. So pretty much SOD got shoved into a mop, post, which is kind of insane. And in my opinion, I am kind of baffled by this because I didn't know if it was true or not, and then I was doing further confirmation, and then I saw the community manager post, which kind of further solidifies this being real. And we'll take you to that right now. And over here, you can see Cavex, the community manager, who's posted many times before on the forum post. He basically says here that with a scheduled weekly maintenance next week, we will begin to adjust Scarlet Enclave and Season of Discovery starting on June 3rd. Player characters in Scarlet Enclave will receive a 5% increase to damage, healing, and health. This will increase by 5% every 2 weeks, and there will be a maximum of 25% increased damage, healing, and health. Basically, the ICC buff being turned on and fast-forwarding everybody's progression to convert them into Mr. Pandaria. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, because I've always been raw on this channel, and there's really, no scripts. They were just having a general discussion between one human being and another, and I like to be honest with you guys because, that's the best way of going about it. And shout out to the editor, much love to him, and to the selfish plug of the Twitch stream, Hello J Tello, send your gold to Tello Rep before we go to Pandaland, locking in. Now, the one thing I will critique that I will say was probably my biggest issue with the Season of Discovery team, and it's not to hate on anything that the developers do. Aggrend, shout out to you. I have nothing but love and support for the developers because I genuinely care about what happens for the future of the game. You need the developers' support in order to get some type of future for the game, right? And that's where we're all at. And the thing is that it makes me wonder why the lack of transparency happens sometimes, or how the transparency is put in certain ways that kind of lead to further questions more than actual solutions for the WoW community. And I further follow up with that with, the post that Aggrend put on Hammer's video 2 months ago, because 2 months ago, we could read here, even in his post, even if you just go to the line in question, especially in number 2, giving too much early or info early on can be harmful because of the TLDR nature of communications and info sharing these days. And the reality is that question, when does SOD end, is a question with a lot of nuance. We could say Phase 8 is the final phase, and all those 100 people you mentioned were saying, well, I'll start now, but it's about to end, would hear it's just over, and they never think about it again. When the reality is we think there are many, many, many months of content in SOD left. And then he further goes on to just, explaining his point of view, which I think it was actually a really good response that he gave to Hammer. But I think in the context of where we are right now, and especially if you look at the bottom line, we'll have more info on the Scarlet Enclave and what's next pretty soon. So sit tight for that. That's what I'm very curious about, because right now we're just left in a go play mop angle. And this kind of post to your player base can be convened as kind of lazy. It can be convened as, man, they really brushed off SOD. And I'm just thinking from the player's mindset on how people react, because that's how people will see this. Is like, oh, well, I just wanted to go to MOP anyways, or I didn't like SOD to begin with, or man, we're really ending SOD on that note. These are how people think. And when you leave a post like that, and I understand they removed the culminate from the original post when they did a SOD, update with Phase 8 saying this is the culmination of Season of Discovery, and I know Kago and all the boys cover that. But something like this is kind of in that same scenario where it's like, man, okay, you removed culmination and there's a hope for phase 9, but now you just shoved it in a mop post. Is that how much Season of Discovery meant to you guys? Because that is kind of bad, in my opinion. And it goes to follow up even with, a recent thing that happened with Ian, where he was talking about players' transparency and player trust, which I'll play the following clip.
And really, that what this is about is maintaining players' trust and confidence in the process. And that is, when you can't always be right in every situation, the most important thing. For any live game, for any ongoing game, trust is the fundamental currency of the entire ecosystem. When we ask players to spend time in our world, we're asking them to spend the most valuable thing they have, their time, with us. And I think, if you look at the discourse around whether a game is a dead game online, which is everywhere these days, I think at the root of that is players' anxiety that maybe their time is being spent in a place that in the long run will be unwise, that they're going to regret. And certainly if it feels like a development team is out of touch and isn't going to look after their interests and isn't going to respect their time, again, why would they spend their time there? And so maintaining trust through everything we do is absolutely essential. We know we're not always going to get it right. Sometimes we're missing some piece of data. Sometimes we're just going to make the wrong guess as to what players will do in response to something that we put out there. Sometimes, given the diversity of our community, it's literally impossible to please both sides. If there are two groups that want literally directly opposing things, we're going to have to disappoint one of them more often than not.
And like Ian was saying here in this clip, how trust is built off the foundations of having people being invested into these worlds and not always getting things correct. It's something that the SOD team has followed in those exact footsteps where things weren't always correct for Season of Discovery, and they had to build trust with having players feel committed to each phase and being a part of Season of Discovery, making it feel like the world that they were trying to expand upon was worth its investment for you to have a good time with and enjoy your time being spent, because that's the most valuable thing out of everything in this world is time that you spend doing things. And if you do this with Season of Discovery and you have friends and guilds and people you play with, you feel like that time is worth its value. It's worth the investment. And that's where Season of Discovery comes into play, where that's where we're at right now with phase 8, and we thought maybe a phase 9 would happen, but it feels like that type of trust and how they communicate things to us as the player base is kind of skewed, if that's the right word to use, where we see them obviously caring and they want to work on something in the future and make something bigger for us, and we see that they have all these versions of WoW for the $15 sub that we provide every month, and there's many great versions of WoW that we all enjoy playing, but at the same time not giving us an actual answer, but shoving this into a small portion of a Mr. Pandaria post for something that was much bigger than even this whole Mr. Pandaria announcement. For a lot of people, Season of Discovery brought a lot of players back to the game to the point where they were announcing numbers for their game, and they never announce numbers, only when something's lit for them. And I don't think they expected that to blow up in their quarterly analytics. So I really think that Season of Discovery deserves a little bit more of a nice send-off than just being shoved into a mop post and being used as a way to get boost into mop. I'm not a fan of that decision from at least a creative or at least a design point of view. But I do hope there is a follow-up message from Aggrend or one of the developers over there to actually explain what the future of Season of Discovery really is, besides it being used for mob level up. Because when you say more and more, and then you also have, your own leaders like Ian talking about trust and how the community it's impossible to get everything right, and you won't always make the correct decisions, and players invest their time, which, needs to be felt respected. You have to have that level of transparency that is open with us, and it sounds like it's more streamlined, and there's actual plans rather than just waiting the month before or waiting the day before to announce something. That's like going to your friend's birthday party and you were invited but you never responded to them, but you show up the day of and don't say a word for weeks, even though they've been trying to hit you up. It's like, dude, where you been? I trust you, dude. Respond to me. If you respond, at least you make things clear. You feel me? But let's follow up with the other clip here, what Ian was talking about, because he really made some really good points in this video.
What we can do is act very quickly when we realize that we have gone astray, so that when something is off, players' reaction ideally is, hey, this isn't it, but I'm sure Blizzard will fix this, as opposed to, wow, these developers are out of touch. Do they even play their own game? And that's not to say that we can't continue to improve in this space, but that is our aim in how we communicate and how we think about the decisions we make. Transparency here can be really scary. Admitting that you were wrong, admitting that you missed something to a community when there's people looking to pick that apart is challenging. It is daunting. But in the long run, I think it's the only way to maintain trust, and you need to maintain trust for there to be a long run.
Now, what Ian even talks about here, I think, is absolutely phenomenal, about the fact that transparency is scary, and that the only way you can, find something to connect with your player base overall is by giving them, the answer, by telling them you were wrong or you were right. But I also think it goes a little bit more deeper than that. I think there is a sense of having your player base feel connected with you as you continue to grow as a company, as you continue growing into the next expansion, giving insights and more data and having a better roadmap planned out to make your community and your customer base feel comfortable, to feel satisfied, to know that there's something else coming around the corner, rather than just hitting them with a, okay, last day notice out of nowhere, here's the slip type of deal. You get what I'm saying? I don't like that kind of approach, and I feel like, especially when we saw the old roadmap for Season of Discovery, where everything was lined up for TBC and MOP, and we saw all these things, but then when you see SOD, it was just a gray area. There was nothing left, and to me, that just goes to show me that there really was no plans for the end. It really was just a conversion into Mr. Pandaria because players felt the power. And a lot of people, or I wouldn't say a lot of people, but some people in my last video, they said, well, no, that's not really how Blizzard operates. They're not going to kind of psyop you to convince you to play MOP. Well, how about now? I mean, it's in the Mr. Pandaria post. It's embedded into the Season of Discovery raid. So it's kind of crazy that this is where we're at right now. But it is what it is. Are you guys excited about Mr. Pandaria? Are you looking forward to, going back to Anniversary? And how do you feel about Season of Discovery? And do know this video is not for a hating on the dev team thing, or a hating on, or being upset that SOD's ending. But it's a bittersweet thing and a little bitter sour. It's like a Sour Patch Kid. Sometimes they're sour and they're sweet. Don't get shot or packed up. Much love to you. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave me your comments below, and we'll go from there. Keep on keeping on, amigos. Catch you in the next one.
Editor, we gotta join Jack Black and Kung Fu Panda and play PvP in arenas. I'll see you then, bitch.
Peace out. Send gold to me on Anniversary and Season of Discovery. Love ya.